Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
Boom! A piece of ice exploded, turning into countless fine ice arrows that spread out in all directions, smashing all enemies within a radius of tens of meters into a sieve. Ice Blast. This is one of the skills Sumu got from Rogris. Released at this time, Sumu has the illusion that he has changed his job into a spellcaster. Have to say, the caster is sought after by countless players, and it also has a very high status among the Aborigines, which is justified. Without worrying about his own safety, a spellcaster with sufficient magic power can exert far more combat power than a physical attack professional. On the battlefield, such a spellcaster will turn into a mobile fort, exerting several times the combat power of a physical attack professional of the same level. Overall, Sumu's profession is inclined towards physical attack. However, with a whole system of ice-based skills obtained from Rogris, plus the super magical endurance brought by the Soul Crystal, it seems that there is nothing wrong with Sumu playing a spellcaster at this time. Comparison: Law skills have become Sumu's regular skills, and those boss skills with physical attacks have become his big move. In the face of an enemy of the same or lower rank, throwing out a law-based skill can kill a large area. If facing an enemy with a higher rank than himself, Sumu can instantly transform into a god of war and kill him with his extremely strong physical attack ability 01 and boss skills. Sumu doesn't know, when he killed the last batch of residents and players with an ice blast, this typical ice-based skill became the clear proof that he was the culprit in destroying the Roar King city. Players and NPCs' impressions of him gradually moved from a physical attack professional to a spellcaster. 1981. He was wearing a full body and reiterated, carrying a skeleton knife on his back. The Rock City has become a dead city. The huge experience points brought by the annihilation of hundreds of thousands of residents and players, coupled with the experience points that Sumu gained himself, pushed his level from level 50, when he left the burial ground, to level 52 today. Four-dimensional properties grow again. Sumu's strength also increased again. If there is another battle in the Roar King city, Sumu at this time may be able to easily kill Rogris. Subsequently, Sumu left the Rock City with Agnes, heading towards the direction he got the notebook from Rogris' memory. As for the Core of Bones, abandoned by Sumu, the place where Rogris found the notes was far from the Rock City. Bringing the Core of Skeletons will not only be easier for humans to discover, but will also greatly slow down their progress. So, when they were about to leave, Sumu gave the Corpse Legion an order to return to the place where the bones were buried. Without the Altar of Death, the Boneyard is doomed to disappear, but this process will take at least a few years. During this period of time, the Core of Skeletons could still live in the Bone Burial Ground, and even hunted the newly born skeletons in the Bone Burial Ground, continuously providing Sumu with experience points. As for whether a new monster lord will be born in the Boneyard after he leaves, this is not something Sumu has to consider. That little pond, he can't stand it anymore. Time flies like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, more than a month has passed. In the past month or so, the players have gradually grown up. Among them, the player with the fastest speed, the best luck, or the most abundant resources has already crossed the threshold of level 10 early, obtained his own profession, and changed from a mortal to an apprentice-level professional. Players' memories are short-lived. It has not appeared in the sight of players for more than a month, and most players have forgotten Sumu. In their opinion, this may be an Easter egg in the game. Let some players experience the feeling of Monster Siege when they just entered the game, and let players see the reality and freedom of this game. When their level gradually increases, and their understanding of the game world gradually deepens, this King of Bones, who appeared at the beginning of the game, was nothing but a novice village boss. Compared with what the King of Bones did, they prefer to upgrade their levels, choose the most experienced tasks, and study their future careers. Even the players in the Roar King city were immersed in the war missions that followed one after another. The Roar Principality is destroyed. When the Roar Archduke family in the royal city was destroyed along with the residents of the city, the distant relatives of the Roar Archduke and the powerful lords began to compete for the position of the Roar Archduke. Even the Rhine Kingdom next door has lost an epic hero as an excuse to intervene in this war and devour the territory of the Duchy of Roar. Players in the Principality of Roar are a blessing in disguise. Players from other countries and continents received the main quest one step ahead. The continuous battlefield missions will certainly lead to the death of a large number of players, but also bring rich rewards. As long as they survive the battlefield mission, their level and strength will far exceed the speed of players from other countries and other continents. The former Sumu, the King of Skeletons who destroyed 4 cities, was like a water splash, and after a ripple was set off among the players, it quickly disappeared. At this time, in the deep mountains far away from the giant rock city, and even from the principality of Ruhr, two black figures were moving fast. A warrior, a knight. Warriors walk, knights ride. But in terms of speed, even if the petite black armored knight rode an extremely mighty and majestic skeleton war horse, his speed was still not as fast as the black armored warrior. Even the black armored warriors need to wait from time to time to keep up with their speed. These two figures, it's Sumu and Agnes. More than a month ago, after learning from Raba's memory the approximate location where he obtained the note, Sumu took Agnes across a very long distance to find it. The game world is huge. Even the continent where he is located is no smaller than the real world. At the speed of Sumu and Agnes, it took more than a month to get to 417 near here. During this period, they did not even have a good rest. That is to say, the undead have no fatigue. Otherwise, even an epic hero or a legendary hero can't stand it for more than a month. Fortunately, a month of boring travel time is finally coming to an end. When they crossed the hills and appeared in a deep canyon, the destination of their trip was finally coming. It's hard for Rogers. He can find such a hidden place. From Rogers' memory, Sumu had long known that the former ice magician had stumbled upon the clues to the hidden tomb here while reading ancient books. After spending a lot of time checking and searching for clues, the approximate location of the tomb was finally found. Then, in the process of exploring the ancient tomb, he found the notebook containing the lost inheritance, and finally embarked on the road of the Lich. If not, I am afraid that in a few decades or hundreds of years, this ancient tomb hidden in the mountains and valleys will be difficult to be known. Wow. Step on the black path, eroded by countless years of wind and rain. The already weathered rock surface is constantly broken. In this crisp voice, Sumu led Agnes to the end of the canyon. The stone door, half covered on both sides, appeared in his sight. Wilderness Tomb. This is the destination of Sumu. At the same time, it is also a gathering place for the dead. The undead gathered here are not skeletons, but an incorporeal undead monster, ghost. If it was the former Sumu, it might be a headache to meet a group of ghosts who have gathered together, because as one of the high-level undead, the racial talent of the ghost family determines that they are immune to pure physical attack damage. Only physical attacks with attribute damage, or legal skills, can really hurt these ghosts. At this time, Sumu will naturally not worry. He has long since changed from a pure physical attack professional to a noble spellcaster. Push open the stone door. Enter with Agnes. As soon as he stepped into the interior of the ancient tomb, Sumu felt the breath of death in the air. These breaths of death are far inferior to the burial grounds with the altar of death, but as the basis for maintaining the existence of those ghosts, it is enough. Enter the tomb and go all the way. Just after advancing a few dozen meters, Sumu saw many twisted human figures on both sides of the spacious tomb passage. I don't know how many years have passed. These twisted human figures have long since dried up. However, Sumu knew that these twisted and dry-scarred corpses were all pushed into the tomb when this ancient tomb was built, as sacrifices for the burial. At the same time, these bodies are also the direct source of many ghosts, and the tomb clatter, fierce clatter. Crisp footsteps sounded in the tomb passage covered with a thick layer of dust, and after glancing at the twisted, dry and painful corpses, Sumu led Agnes down the tomb passage that kept going down. When they walked out of the tomb passage and really entered this ancient tomb, one by one translucent, illusory shadows appeared in front of them. Ghost. As an undead race alongside death knights and lichs, the starting rank of the ghost clan is also an elite rank. Only those souls who have endured enough torment, or who are strong enough, will be transformed into the ghost family after they are eroded and submerged by the breath of death. Elite rank, ghost. Warrior rank, ghost. Lord's rank, the spirit of pain. At a glance, among the more than a dozen ghosts that appeared in front of Sumu and Agnes, there was one ghost who stepped into the ranks of warriors. This deep underground tomb is small, compared to the burial ground, but hides hundreds of ghosts. Among them are the ghosts of warriors and the spirits of pain of lords. This is why, after stealing the notebook, Rogers never came back. At the beginning, he broke into this ancient tomb with a holy light amulet and stole the inheritance notes. When the holy light amulet is exhausted, his strength at the peak of the heroic rank is far from being the opponent of the many ghosts in the ancient tomb. For Sumu, no problem. When the dozen or so ghosts appeared, Sumu put a layer of frost armor on Agnes, and a dark blue circle of light instantly burst out from his body, spreading out towards the surroundings. This aperture is not an entity, but it contains the ultimate freezing air. It is the high-level skill Frost Nova among the ice mages. Frost Nova spreads. Those surging ghosts were suddenly damaged by the freezing gas contained in the aperture. The deceleration effect of Frost Nova has reduced the speed of these ghosts by a few %. Subsequently, with a slight smile, Layers of halos erupted from Sumu's body one after another. Every layer of aperture is a frost nova. With Sumu's current spiritual attributes, combined with frost nova, an advanced ice-based skill, only 3 or 4 skill bursts turned these dozen ghosts into ashes. You killed the ghost. You gain 500 experience points. You killed ghost. You gain 1,300 experience points. You have obtained the transfer information of elite occupation template. Ghost. You have obtained the job transfer information of the warrior profession template Ghost. The system prompt sound comes in real time. Looking at the tiny ashes scattered on the ground after the ghosts were killed, Sumu continued to walk towards the depths of the ancient tomb. With Agnes have to say, Sumu fell in love with the feeling of being a spellcaster. Whenever a ghost appears, he will release a frost nova, or frost blast, with his own magic value of more than 40,000 points and the reserve magic value of up to 100,000 points in the soul crystal as the backing. He can almost unscrupulously release magic skills under the bombardment of this intensive legal system skills. The ghosts in the ancient tomb often just appeared, and they were bombarded and killed before they had time to rush to the side of the tomb. His skeletal sword, except for opening the tomb door, was completely useless at other times, all the way rampant. By the time he reached the core chamber of the ancient tomb, from the entrance of the ancient tomb, Sumu had already killed hundreds of ghosts, and the magic value consumed was as high as 30,000. The core tomb was where Rogris stole the notes. It is also the goal of Sumu's trip. Boom, slashing out again, smashing the thick stone tomb door of the core tomb. Sumu took Agnes and strode into it, and came to the center of the ancient tomb. This is a spacious space. The tomb supported by stone pillars was quite empty, except for the 2 heavy sarcophagi placed in the center of the tomb. The only thing that attracted attention was a strange building, in the corner of the tomb, similar to an altar, but not like it. With the experience of his previous life, Sumu knew that this was the target he was looking for. This was an abandoned, but still intact teleportation array. As long as this teleportation array was activated, he could instantly cross an extremely long distance, and appear in the land full of death and undead. Of course, using teleportation arrays is not that simple. The first thing he has to do is to kill the ghost in this core tomb, the owner of the 2 sarcophagi, the owner of an ancient tomb, that was built not knowing how many years ago could not be a living being. When Sumu and Agnes stepped into the tomb, the lids of the 2 heavy sarcophagi also began to move. A dull and harsh voice sounded in the tomb, and with the movement of the coffin lid, 2 equally translucent figures quietly emerged from the sarcophagus. Unlike phantom ghosts and ghosts, although the 2 figures emerging from the sarcophagus were also translucent, their faces were extremely clear, and Sumu could even see their pained and distorted expressions from these 2 faces. Ghost Lord, Painful Spirit. These 2 ghosts who stepped into the Lord rank are not only the lords of all ghosts in the ancient tomb, but also the masters of this ancient tomb. The 2 spirits of pain are also nothing to Sumu today. An imprisoned hand was released, imprisoning the 2 spirits of pain that had just emerged from the sarcophagus. Sumu's thoughts moved, and frost blasts appeared in the middle of the 2 spirits of pain, bursting open. After a frost blast is released, the next one will be picked up immediately. Numerous fine ice arrows erupted from the broken ice blocks, piercing the walls of the entire tomb full of holes. Every time the frost blasting skill erupted, the figures of the 2 spirits of pain dimmed. After 10 frost blasts, the duration of the imprisoned hand ended, and the big hand composed entirely of tiny bones sank into the ground, and the 2 spirits of pain that hadn't moved a step from beginning to end also turned into a pinch of white ashes, and fell to the ground. You killed the spirit of pain, *2. You gain 50,000 experience points +2. After killing the pain spirits, Sumu took a few steps forward, and came before the ashes left by the 2 pain spirits. He no longer looked down on the ghosts and ghosts before, and the pain spirits of these 2 lords should not be wasted. The spirit of pain, who specializes in the growth of spiritual attributes like a lich, can more or less bring him some spiritual attribute growth. You have absorbed the essence of the ashes, and your body has become stronger. Your mental attribute has increased by 250 points. Your mental attribute has increased by 250 points. You have obtained the transfer information of the Lord Occupation template, Spirit of Pain. It's not bad. When the system beep sounded again, Sumu nodded slightly. 500 points of spiritual attribute. His magic value increased by 5,000 points again. Although it is only a fraction of the magic value he currently has, but it is enough for him to release a few skills. Pity, just the Lord rank. If it's the Wailing Banshee of the Epic rank, there will be one more material for my next professional fusion. After solving the Spirit of Pain, Sumu brought Agnes to the front of the teleportation array. This teleportation array has been abandoned, but it is still intact. It's just the long-term abandonment and the loss of energy crystals, which makes this teleportation array full of outdated atmosphere. Recalling the information about the teleportation array from Rogris and the white-robed mage, Sumu took out a few crystals that were already full of mana from his storage space, and placed them in several recesses of the teleportation array. On the slot, subsequently, with a slight buzzing sound, the magic power in the crystal was injected into the teleportation array, and a deep blue color also appeared from the center of the teleportation array. The teleportation array is on. Looking at this teleportation formation leading to an exotic land, Sumu took a deep breath and stepped into it. Boom boom, wow! Just as he walked out of the teleportation array, before he could see the surrounding environment clearly, all kinds of deafening roars entered Sumu's ears. Immediately after, a sense of crisis emerged from behind. Before he could check it out, Sumu clenched the skeleton sword and slashed behind him. Wow! A slight sense of stagnation came from the skeleton sword, and the slight sound of the sharp blade cutting the body also reached his ears. Crisis lifted. At this time, Sumu had time to check his surroundings. This look surprised Sumu. If it weren't for the fact that his face was still covered with a layer of armor, I am afraid that at this time he was just like a human being. His mouth opened wide in shock. The information is correct. There was no mistake in the teleportation array. After stepping into the deep blue, the teleportation formation really teleported him to an area full of death and undead. Here is a city, an outdated and dilapidated city, but full of a strong breath of death. This is a city of the dead. Looking around, countless undead filled Sumu's eyes, and the undead of various races and ranks took up almost every inch of space within the field of vision. Rough statistics, just seeing his undead. The number exceeds 1 million, only. These undead are fighting. The location of Sumu is about 420, probably on the edge of the ruins of this city, which is several times larger than the Roar King city. He looked towards the inside of the city of the undead, and could see that countless undead were rushing out frantically, charging towards the outside of the city. Hundreds of thousands, even millions of undead charged, but only made a dense and crisp click, messy and silent. Unable to help, Sumu looked out of the city again. Then, he saw the light. That's right, is light, and it is the natural enemy of all undead. Holy light. There is a war going on in the city of the dead near. Outside the ruins of the city thousands of meters away from Sumu, a legendary swordsman rushed into the dense sea of undead, and the rays of light kept coming out, tearing pieces of the undead into ashes far away. A night order of about 3,000 people is charging, and a strong holy light is shrouded in this night order, and the entire night order is set off like a bolt of lightning, tearing apart the black shrouded city of the undead and its surroundings canopy. One of the 3 knights charging at the forefront is a legendary hero, 2 are epic heroes, and the 3 charge in a triangle, forming the pinnacle of this night order. Beneath epic heroes, in this night group with only 3,000 people, there are dozens of heroic knights, and the rest are all elite knights. After the knights, there is a team of priests. The number of this pastor is relatively small, only, of, less than 100 people, but among these 100 priests, there is also an epic hero, and more than 10 hero priests. The rest are still elite priests. This is on the ground. High in the sky, there are also enemies. A holy light mage with white hair and beard, dressed in a gorgeous sacrificial robe, with a cold and solemn face, floated above the charging knights. He held a staff in one hand and an open book in the other. A thick holy light emanated from the mage and enveloped the knights below, like the second sun in the sky. The 3rd legendary hero. He is also the most powerful legendary hero, well known. In addition to the wind-type mage, other professionals can only gain the ability to fly by stepping into the legendary rank, and from then on, they can get rid of the shackles of the earth and can fly freely, even without watching him floating in the air. Just the light that radiates from this holy light mage makes Sumu feel deadly at first glance to confirm that he is a legendary hero, and, at least a high-level legendary hero. 3 legendary heroes, 3 epic heroes, plus dozens of hero knights, hero priests, and thousands of elite mentors, professionals. This was the enemy Sumu saw when teleporting over. Of course, that's not all. There are also a small number of hero ranks of other professions appearing on the battlefield. These hero professionals did not join the frontal battlefield, but lurked, sniped, or assisted to assist other humans in battle. The one Sumu had just killed was such a heroic assassin, who had sneaked into the city of the dead. Seeing this scene, Sumu was speechless. He wanted to teleport to this world full of death and undead, in order to obtain other occupation templates required for the advanced epic rank. But he never expected that he would encounter such a war beyond the limit just after the transmission. Like the war between death, Sumu is powerful. This is undeniable. In the Lord rank, he can kill the Griffin Knight in the epic rank, and kill the Great Lich Rogris, who has stepped into the epic rank. This is of course a kind of power, but Sumu has great AC numbers. If the enemy he faces is an epic hero, he has nothing to fear. No matter how many epic heroes there are, he can fight against them, with the elusive ability of phase shifting, and even defeat them. 18. With a gap of 2 large ranks, the current Sumu is definitely not the opponent of a legendary hero, not to mention the legendary mage, who seems to be the incarnation of the holy light. Even another legendary swordsman legendary knight can be matched by today's Sumu, unless he stepped into the epic stage. And a few more levels. While Sumu was tangled, Agnes also came out of the teleportation array. Even Sumu can't bear the war of this level and intensity, let alone Agnes. So when Agnes appeared, she immediately received an order from Sumu: hide in the depths of the city of the undead. Do not get close to the battlefield. The farther away from the battlefield, the better. Sumu still attached great importance to the first-named night girl he had conquered, and naturally did not want to see her rush into the battlefield and be damaged in this war. As for Sumu, as long as he is not transferred by the 3 legendary heroes, Michigami, with Suma's current strength and phase, this life-saving skill, he has absolute certainty to ensure his own safety. Under this premise, Sumu quietly concealed his figure and paid close attention to the battlefield of Hongd. If the city of the undead lost to the Holy Light Legion, Sumu would naturally leave with Agnes as soon as possible. If the city of the undead has the strength to fight against the Legion of Light, Sumu also doesn't mind entering the battlefield and hunting heroes when the time is right. Whether it is a hero professional or an epic hero, it means a lot of experience and free points for him. It is undoubtedly the most cost-effective to wait for an opportunity to harvest on the chaotic battlefield of evenly matched forces. The Knights of the Holy Light are still charging. The almost endless sea of undead is still surging frantically, as if to use their own numbers and bodies to resist the knights and prevent them from entering this city of the undead only. Although the number of undead is large, there has never been a high-level undead. When their enemies are 3 legendary heroes, 3 epic heroes, and thousands of elite knights blessed by various spells and holy lights, it seems that no matter how many, it is difficult to resist them all. Time flies fast. The legendary Juggernaut has killed tens of thousands of undead, and has a tendency to rush into the city of the undead. The elite knights shrouded in holy light have also approached, only a kilometer away from the city of the undead. Just when Sumu was worried whether the high-level undead in this city of the undead escaped first, but only used the sea of undead to delay the enemy's footsteps, the change finally appeared. A high-pitched roar sounded from the depths of the city of the dead and spread far away. With this roar resembling a dragon and a beast, an extremely rich and pure aura of death suddenly spread from the center of the city of the dead. The dark sky that was torn apart by the elite knights also closed again at this moment, and it's shrouded in it. At the cost of shredding hundreds of thousands of undead of all ranks, the high-level undead in this city of the undead are finally ready for war. And finally, appeared in Suma's field of vision, a lich, and the Lich King of the legendary rank, appeared in Suma's field of vision, also floating in mid-air. Mage Shengwang held a staff in one hand and a book in the other, as if he was the incarnation of the holy light, the second sun that came to the world. The Lich King was filled with a strong breath of death. A huge chain of mist stretched from behind him to the depths of the city of death, instilling a steady stream of death breath into the body of the Lich King. The two sides confronted. The high-level undead in the city of the undead are obviously not only the Lich King himself. After the Lich King appeared, purified the battlefield with a strong breath of death, and closed the dark sky again, several different high-level undead appeared in all directions of the city of the undead. Below the Lich King, a ghost army appeared. Among the thousands of translucent figures, a female figure, which is almost illusory in other aspects, is almost no different from humans floating in the low sky. This is the epic boss of the ghost family, the Wailing Banshee. Suma's left side, accompanied by the sound of footsteps like shaking the ground, hundreds of 3-meter-high behemoths slowly walked out of the city of the dead. Approaching a close battle, these tall figures are also filled with the breath of death, but their bodies are covered with rotting flesh. In the center of these hundreds of behemoths, one is more than 5 meters high, and its body is full of various scars, as if the undead of monsters, mixed with the flesh and blood of dozens of different races are listed. The end of one arm turned into a bone hook, and the cold light flickered. The end of the other arm turned into a chain, linked to a huge meteor hammer, exuding a brutal and tyrannical aura. Stitch monster. This is the race of these behemoths, and the suture monster with a height of more than 5 meters has already reached the epic rank. Finally, it is the edge of the battlefield. A Black Knight Order with only a few hundred people poured out from the canyon outside the city of death, pierced into the dark sky like a black sharp knife, and joined the war. Although the number of this Black Knight is small, no one dares to ignore it, not only because the leader of this Black Knight Order is a boss who has stepped into the epic rank, but also because this Black Knight Order is one of the high-level undead races. Death Knight. The knights shrouded in holy light are all elites and can be called powerful, except the leader of this Black Knight is the Fear Knight of the epic rank. The rest are all the Death Knights of the Lord rank. A Lord-level boss is enough to cause huge damage in the human world. An epic boss can make a human kingdom feel like a big enemy. What about when an epic Dread Knight charges with hundreds of Lord-level Death Knights? Even the knights who are commanded by the legendary hero knights, shrouded in holy light, and all the elite knights dare not say that they are their opponents. A legendary Lich King, a wailing banshee of an epic rank, with thousands of ghostly legions of other ranks. An epic Stitch Monster with hundreds of other Stitch Monster legions. An epic Dread Knight, with hundreds of Death Knights of the Lord rank. In addition, there are countless seas of undead, pouring out from the city of the undead, ranging from the basic rank to the Lord rank, and the number exceeds 1 million. This is the strength of the city of the dead. No wonder, when Sumu and Agnes appeared, they saw 3 legendary heroes, 3 epic heroes, and a terrifying lineup of many knights and priests, the strength and heritage revealed in the face of the city of the dead. At this time, Sumu felt that the number of legions on the side of the holy light was not only small, but also less. Judging from the fact that monster bosses of the same rank can crush professionals of other races if there is no stronger trump card, the seemingly terrifying lineup of the holy light side will not only be difficult to conquer the city of the dead, but will be silently attacked. Engulf. The dark sky closed, except for the priest group led by epic heroes, still in the world of light, the holy light mage, the legendary juggernaut, and the elite knights commanded by the legendary hero, were all shrouded in a sky full of pure death. The only function of the dark sky is to create an environment full of pure death breath. For the undead, this is where they live. For the creatures of other races, entering the dark sky, not only will the sight be blocked by the thick fog, but the ubiquitous aura of death is also eroding the body and soul of the creatures, transforming them from the living to the undead. Dark sky can be released either through spells, temporarily, or through buildings, permanent. When the dark sky closed with the arrival of the Lich King, the ubiquitous aura of death began to erode the bodies and souls of these living beings, and the holy light shrouded in the elite knights suddenly dimmed a lot. Epic heroes and legendary heroes don't care, but those knights who only had elite ranks couldn't care less. Without the shroud of the holy light, the time they could persist in the dark sky might only be a few minutes. Even a heroic professional cannot withstand the darkness unleashed by a legendary Lich King for a long time. It can be said, with the arrival of the Lich King, this battlefield shrouded in the breath of death has once again become the home of the undead. The war has not begun. Like the Lich in Sumu's cognition, this Lich King, who came from the depths of the city of the undead, also covered his entire body with a hood and robe. Floating high in the air, look at the holy light mage opposite. The Lich King's hoarse voice spread across the entire battlefield. Fred, we have never stepped out of this mountain range, let alone human territory. This is just our habitat. You shouldn't have come. A Lich King, and it's a Lich King trying to reason with the humans of the Holy Light camp. Seeing this scene, Sumu couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Even he, an alien who was reborn from a human to a skeleton, knows that the undead and living beings are natural enemies, and he knows to stand his ground and do what he should do. The Lich King seems a little stupid as expected. When the Lich King tried to reason, the Holy Light mage named Fred said expressionlessly, "The existence of the undead is sin. Wherever the Holy Light goes, it is the territory of the Empire. His Majesty the Emperor does not allow the existence of a city of sin in the territory of the Empire, nor does he allow a Lich King to protect these degenerate existences that should be reduced to ashes under the Holy Light. Argus, by the time we arrive, this city of sin should end." Fred is the name of the legendary Holy Light mage. Argus, the protector of the city of the dead, the name of the legendary Lich King. Sumu's heart trembled slightly when he heard the name. Fred he didn't understand. After all, this continent was not the continent he was born in when he was a player in his previous life. But Argus, if he remembers correctly, this name seems to have appeared when the players in the previous life were sorting out the deeds of Rogris, Undead Sage, Wisdom Lich, Protector of the Undead. These are all Argus titles. Of course, it's just a detail, just a brief mention in that big memo. The direct reason Argus is widely known is still Rogris. It is recorded in the major chronicle that Rogris, the natural disaster mage, built his undead empire on the ruins after killing Argus, and inheriting the power and wisdom of Argus, Undead Scourge. That is to say, the city of the undead in front of him is the ruins where Rogris created the undead empire in his previous life. And this Lich King, it was even killed by Rogris, which became a stepping stone for him to enter the legendary stage. This is a war that can only be used as the background of the game in the previous life. If it wasn't for the players being curious about Rogris and digging deeply, almost no one would know that such a huge war had occurred in this ruined city among the mountains before the players rise. Look at the two legends floating in the sky. Look at the two camps facing each other on the ground. Sumu suddenly felt that he was witnessing an epic. If the other undead were reasoning with the Holy Light Mage from the Holy Light camp, Sumu must have thought that the other party was plotting something. If it was Argus, that is sheer stupidity, but when he knew that the Lich King was the legendary Argus, Sumu's heart calmed down, regardless of whether Argus is really stupid or not. According to the records in the major chronicles, the city of the undead should have won this war. A Lich King has already stood at the pinnacle of this continent. Wanting to kill such a Lich King, or wanting to destroy the city of the undead under the protection of such a Lich King is not that simple. Negotiations failed, and Argus also gave up and continued to talk. After all, he is a sage of the undead, and the protector of the city of the undead. Even if he is unwilling to do it, when the Holy Light camp strikes, he must fulfill his responsibilities, and promises to protect this city belonging to the dead under the attack of the Holy Light camp. The other side, this is especially true of the Holy Light camp, under the command of Fred. Destroying the city of the undead, 420, is not only an order from the Emperor, but also the mission and glory brought by the Holy Light they believe in. Under the erosion of the dark sky, the Holy Light on the elite knights has become weaker and weaker, but when the negotiation broke down, the book in the hands of the Holy Light Mage Fred automatically turned a page, and instantly a more intense holy light burst out from it, shrouding the elite knights under the shroud of the more intense holy light than before. The knights of the elite knights not only ignored the erosion of the dark sky, but even started to burn on the edge of the holy light. Holy light is the natural enemy of all undead. This sentence is not bragging. The holy light shrouded in the elite knights not only shelters these knights, but also constantly burns the breath of death in the dark sky. Blue smoke mourns. The smoke that drifted away was all the aura of death, burned by the holy light. Fred's blessing is like a signal. When the holy light on his body was full, the legendary knight of the elite knights shouted, and the entire knights began to charge again. At the same time, the legendary juggernaut who fought alone was shrouded in a sharp sword light, sweeping away like a gust of wind, toward the overwhelming sea of undead. Blade Storm, Juggernaut's iconic ultimate move. When this Blade Storm with a range of tens of meters swept through, an epic boss was involved, and it was torn apart by the ubiquitous blade and turned into nothing. It's not just the Holy Light camp that is charging. The sea of undead is still gushing out, and the wailing banshee made a shrill howl that swept the entire battlefield, blessing all the Holy Light camps with a negative buff. The Stitch Monster boss brought his own Stitch Monsters, like a siege chariot. It knocked away countless undead and rushed towards the center of the battlefield. The Death Knights also began to charge. When the skeletal warhorse, that step-down move, the number of Death Knights as high as several hundred collectively unfolded their own racial skill Death Halo. As long as the Death Halo is unfolded, it will emit a strong death force, constantly eroding the enemy. Its erosion effect even surpasses the darkness that covers the entire battlefield. This is not the point. The key is that when the Death Knights charge together, the power and coverage of the death aura they unfold can be superimposed. The halo of death unfolded by a Death Knight may have limited power, but what about when hundreds of Death Knights come together to form a Death Knight order, and collectively expand the Death Halo, and at it, explode? Not just a coverage explosion, the power of the Death Halo will also explode. Death Knight, arguably the strangest undead race, because only one Death Knight can be born in a world. When a Bone Knight has accumulated and advanced over a long period of time, and gradually advanced from Bone Knight to Dark Knight, and then advanced to Death Knight from Dark Knight, it will instinctively follow the guidance of the race to find the Death Knight group, join in, or challenge the leader of the order. The leader of the Death Knights can absorb the power of the entire Knight's evolution. When the number of Death Knights exceeds 100, a Knight leader, who has stepped into the epic position, will be born. The Fear Knight, a Death Knight with a Death Halo. Dread Knight comes with a Fear Halo. The effect of the Death Halo is to erode all enemies who step into the coverage area of the Halo. The effect of the Fear Halo is to bring the deepest fear to all the enemies they face and reduce their physical resistance. It can be said, although the Fear Knight is only an epic rank when he charges with his Death Knights, he is the Knight with a legendary hero, 2 epic heroes, dozens of hero knights and thousands of elite knights. The regiment is not its opponent. Without him, this kind of death halo is constantly superimposed, and then the combat method of reducing the resistance through the fear halo is too terrifying, and even epic heroes may not be able to persist in it for long. Only under the shroud and protection of the holy light can this elite knights dare to fight against the Death Knights. Both knights began to charge. The distance is getting closer. This is the direct collision between the power of the holy light and the power of death, and it is also one of the important factors for the victory of this war. Watch the entire battle. Even Sumu's heart was boiling with enthusiasm. Just as the Death Knights began to charge, he suddenly received a request from Agnes. Agnes, want to join the Death Knights and participate in this war? Enslaved by Sumu and become his knight's younger sister, Agnes can suppress her instinct as a Death Knight, but when a powerful Death Knights joined the battlefield and began to charge, the Knight girl couldn't help her desire and made a request to Sumu. Join it and traverse the battlefield against the holy light. This is the same desire of Agnes. Sumu was a little confused. If it was an ordinary war, he would definitely not stop it, but the intensity of the war in front of him has exceeded the upper limit. Even if Sumu is not careful, he will die. Not to mention Agnes, who is only a lord, but although Agnes is a lord, Sumu has used soul crystals to enhance its four-dimensional attributes during the months of subduing her. In terms of strength, of course, Agnes could not be the opponent of the epic Dread Knight. However, in the entire Death Knight order, except for the Fear Knight, I am afraid that other Death Knights are far inferior to Agnes, at least in 4D properties. The legendary Juggernaut confronts the Wailing Banshee, the epic Stitch, and the countless oceans of undead that are still gushing out. The Light Mage is pinned down by Argus, and it is unlikely that he will face the Death Knights himself. In this way, it seems that the opponents of the Death Knights are only the Elite Knights. Based on Sumu's knowledge of the Death Knights, even if they are not rivals of the Elite Knights, the difference is not very big. After Agnes joined the Death Knights, the danger she encountered was not as great as she imagined. This is glory. It is also a sublimation. Only the Death Knights who joined the Death Knights are the real Death Knights. Finally, after thinking about a lot of information, Sumu still nodded and agreed to Agnes' request to join the Death Knights. The war continues. Two knights, one black and one white, are also rapidly approaching. When the two knights were only more than 100 meters apart, the legendary hero knights had a 5.5 ray of light, and the battle formation was launched, bringing the power of the entire knights together. The power of the gang gathers together, with the Death Halo and Fear Halo piercing out. A black, a white, a death, holy light. The battlefield roared, and even the dark sky was torn in half. When the two knights staggered past, several Death Knights were pierced by the knight skills of the legendary hero knights, and dozens of elite knights could not bear the dark knight skills with the dual power of Death Halo and Fear Halo. It was quickly eroded and turned into a swarm of white bones. The first time staggered, both sides were injured. When the Death Knights and the Elite Knights galloped on the battlefield, drawing a huge black and white arc, and preparing to charge and collide again, a petite figure rushed out of the city of the dead and merged into the Black Knight's middle. The Death Halo unfolds. Death Knight. Agnes reset. Agnes finally came back to her Death Knights. Of course, this does not mean that Agnes betrayed Sumu. After being enslaved by the eroded talent, guarding Sumu's existence and executing Sumu's orders has become the Death Knight's highest code. She just joined the Death Knights and joined the war as a member of the Death Knights. The war is over. She does not need to be summoned by Sumu. She will also take the initiative to return to Sumu's side only. After the baptism and sublimation of this war, Agnes at that time was a real Death Knight, not just the Death Knight the undead race observed for a while. After making sure that Agnes had reunited with the Death Knights and that there was no great danger, Sumu's attention returned to the battle between Fred and Argus, a holy light mage, a Lich King. These two have stepped into the legendary rank, and have even reached the peak of the legendary rank. Eating the spellcaster who stands at the top of the continent is the most crucial factor in determining the outcome of this war. The Lich King Argus wins. He can easily repel the incoming holy light camp and resolve this crisis. Fred won, and he could easily tear apart the dark sky, turning the city of the dead, which had been sheltered by Argus, to nothing. Under normal circumstances, a legendary hero cannot be the opponent of a legendary monster boss, but Fred is different. Not only has his own strength reached the pinnacle of the legendary rank, but he has also made adequate preparations for this visit. Holding a cane in one hand and a book in the other, staff, just legendary equipment, it is not surprising that such a high-ranking holy light mage, who stands at the pinnacle of the continent, has a legendary staff. But that's not the case with that book. A book, but exudes a strong holy light. Not only did the rich holy light on Fred come from this book, but even the holy light he blessed on the Elite Knights also came from this book. because this book is a prop that surpasses the legendary quality Holy Artifact Book of Light, as the existence second only to artifacts and semi-artifacts, holy artifact level equipment. Its power is far from the legendary equipment, or epic equipment can be compared. Holding the Book of Light in his hand, Fred just opened a page, and blessed the elite knights with a holy light that was several times stronger and more durable than his own release. Each page represents a powerful top-level holy light spell. Even a spellcaster who has stepped into the legendary rank needs a period of guidance when releasing top-level spells, and Fred, who holds the Book of Light, all he needs to do is to use his own magic power to stimulate the top-level holy light spells, and even forbidden spells that have long been stored in the Book of Light. The following war has already begun. Fred was not idle either, maintaining the holy light blessing to the elite knights. Fred slowly poured his magic power into the Book of Light. The holy artifact shrouded in holy light automatically turned the page again. Then above the sky, a radiant giant sword with a length of several tens of feet, which was completely condensed from the rich holy light, gradually formed, with the terrifying power of tearing and purifying everything, and attacked Argus in a world-breaking manner. The great sword of light tore through the dark sky. Argus in the sky did not move, but the chain of mist behind him, that stretched to the depths of the city of the undead, seemed to have turned into substance at this moment, shaking violently. Next moment, dark beams of light soared into the sky. Facing the incoming ray of light, the giant sword rushed up. Wow! As if a ladle of water had been poured into the magma, when the jet-black beam of light, which was formed entirely by the purest aura of death and darkness, came into contact with the giant sword of light. Billowing blue smoke spread out. The great sword of light is still slashing. The holy light contained in it is also purifying everything around it. Same. The jet-black beam of light is also eroding and consuming the great sword of light. At this moment, it seems that even the speed of the passage of time has become much slower. Under Sumu's gaze, the great sword of light was getting closer and closer to Argus. At the same time, the radiant giant sword, which is being eroded and worn away all the time, is also rapidly shrinking. When the great sword of light was only a few meters away from hitting Argus, the holy sword that was enough to completely destroy a mountain was finally wiped away and disappeared. This is just a tentative attack. Neither Fred nor Argus showed their true strength, but even if such an attack falls on Sumu, or the epic bosses in the city of the dead, they will be purified, eliminated, and burned to ashes. Inside the city of the dead, Sumu's eyes flickered. Having seen this level of battle with his own eyes, his thirst for advanced epics and advanced legends is even more urgent. The many human heroes of the Holy Light Camp are a lot of experience points and free points. The many bosses in the city of the undead mean the occupation template he needs to advance to the epic. Both sides are fighting. Naturally, it was impossible for Sumu to sneak up on the mini bosses in the city of the undead at this time. To obtain their career templates to do so would undoubtedly be self-destruction. Losing the resistance of many undead bosses, the Holy Light Camp can easily tear open the dark sky, enter the city of the undead, and destroy the habitat of the undead. Argus would not allow him to do so either. The other side. Looking at the battlefield, Sumu thought a little. The battle between the Death Knights and the Elite Knights does not require him to intervene. Although there is no legendary undead boss to join in this war between knights, the Death Knights have not fallen behind, but have a tendency to dominate. The battle between the Wailing Banshee, the Epic Stitch, and the legendary Juggernaut was the worst. After all, there is a big difference. Even with the help of a vast ocean of undead, the Wailing Banshee and the Epic Stitcher cannot resist the edge of a legendary Juggernaut. After a short battle, the figure of the Wailing Banshee dimmed a lot, and the Epic Stitching monster had one arm cut off and lost the huge chain connected to the meteor hammer. In general, they can hold on to their numbers in fights. Finally, it's that clergy led by an epic hero cleric. 443 is an auxiliary occupation. The role of the priest regiment on the battlefield should not be underestimated. Whether it is healing or buffing the soldiers of your own camp, or directly using the holy light as an attack method to purify the undead on the battlefield, the role played by this hundreds of priests is not even worse than that of the elite knights. But what? Compared to the elite knights, the defense capability of this priest group was a little far behind. It's not that Fred doesn't care about the safety of the clergy. Actually, he would rather lose the elite knights than the priests. Before coming to the city of the undead, Fred had investigated the number and types of high-level undead in the city of the undead. When the war began, the high-level existence of the undead side was contained, and the priests were in the rear of the entire battlefield, and their security was adequately guaranteed. Plus, there was an epic priest who was good at defense in the priest group. He also personally took the initiative to build an indestructible barrier for the priest group, which made him feel at ease to leave the priest group in the rear. Even if there is any accident, with the ability of a legendary holy light mage, it can be remedied in the fastest time. It can be said, all kinds of measures add up, and the safety of the pastor group can be described as foolproof. Of course, this is only under normal circumstances. The abnormal situation is, a king of bones, never known to Fred and unknown to Argus, appeared on the battlefield. Keep an eye on this priesthood. It is audacious to sneak attack on a priest group under the nose of a legendary holy light mage. With such an idea in mind, Sumu did not hesitate. When Fred and Argus start a new round of confrontation, Sumu, who has been lurking in the city of the dead, has never joined the battlefield. Step out. Phase shift. Without anyone noticing, Sumu's figure has disappeared from the city of the dead, spanning a distance of several thousand meters, traversing the entire battlefield, and appearing among the priests. The radiant barrier that Fred used the Book of Radiance himself to lay down can be said to be indestructible. Even if it is a legendary boss, it will take a long time to destroy it, but Sumu doesn't need to be blasted. He just needs to cross this barrier with the ability to penetrate obstacles with phase shifting. An epic hero, with dozens of hero priests, dozens of mentor priests and hundreds of elite priests, plus the radiant barrier outside the priest group, makes the entire priest group full of a strong aura of holy light. When passing through the barrier with phase shift and appearing in the priesthood, Sumu was immediately damaged by the rich holy light that filled the entire priesthood like water into oil. When an undead full of the breath of death appeared in the holy light, the originally stable and peaceful holy light rioted. Like a glass of water poured into a scalding frying pan, a large amount of blue smoke rose from the surface of Sumu's body. Under the purification of this rich and ubiquitous holy light, the aura of death in Sumu's body was quickly dissipating, and the skeleton armor on the surface of his body. Even at this moment, a large area of scorch and cracks appeared, but he doesn't care. The first time he appeared in the priest group, the skeleton sword in Sumu's hand was already cut out. With a strength attribute of more than 8,000 points, it urges the skeleton sword that has reached epic quality. What kind of power is this? Cold light flickered before many priests in the radiant barrier have reacted. The epic priest, who stood at the center of the priesthood, led all priests, and at the same time united all priests to bless the knights with holy light spells, was directly cut into two pieces by Sumu from head to toe. You killed the light singer. You gained 350,000 experience points. The system's prompt sound came in real time, and it appeared that the epic priest, who had been cut into two pieces, was indeed dead and could no longer die. With one move, Sumu didn't stop. Just when the complexions of these many priests changed, his second knife had already been cut out. Death cut. Dark light blooms in this radiant barrier filled with holy light. Sumu's big move is aimed at the dozen or so hero priests. Knife light exploded crisscross. More than a dozen priests of the heroic rank didn't even have a chance to resist. They were torn apart by this move, and turned into flesh and debris flying in the sky. You killed Priest of Light. You gained 130,000 experience points. You killed Priest Holy Light. You have gained 110,000 experience points. You killed. In the sound of the system prompt, Sumu raised the skeleton knife for the third time. This time it's a smash. Presumptuous. When Sumu broke into the priest group and started to kill, Fred in the sky finally discovered the abnormality of the priest group. All hair and beard. The furious holy light mage directly turned to the next page of the Book of Light, and a powerful top-level holy light spell erupted, attacking Sumu, who was still in the priest group. An undead, just the undead of the Lord rank, pouring into the priest's group to kill while he was distracted. This is beyond the bottom line that Fred can accept. There was no time to consider how the undead passed through the radiant barrier that he had set up. At this time, Fred just wanted to kill it as soon as possible to prevent the undead from causing more damage. Priests are more precious and more difficult to cultivate than elite knights. If possible, he would rather accept the loss of nearly half of the elite knights, and it is difficult to accept that the priests that the Empire has finally cultivated are damaged here. Even if he really destroyed the city of the undead, it would not be worth it if he damaged the priests. However late, before the holy light spell in the Book of Light struck down, Sumu had already cut out this third knife. The dark red sword glow is new. Kill the last two hero priests. The power of the sword light continued to slash forward, and in the process, countless smaller dark red light blades were continuously split, sweeping every inch of space within the radiant barrier. The priesthood is very dense. In order to better gather the strength of the crowd to bless the holy light buff, these hundreds of priests crowded into an extremely narrow space in this way. When the smashing slash erupted, these priests didn't even have time to bless themselves with a shield, and were hit, cut, and turned into pieces by the rapidly spreading dark red light blade. The thick blood color diffused out, and the dark red light blade complemented each other. This thick blood color also renders the radiant barrier incomparably eerie. With a single slash, the remaining elite priests were wiped out. Before the holy light spell from the Book of Light blasted down, Sumu released phase shift again. Step out, disappear. When Sumu's figure completely disappeared, the belated holy light spell bombarded the radiant barrier, shattered the tough barrier, and drowned the blood-stained priests. The maximum spanning distance of the phase shift is 10 times that of Sumu's spiritual attributes. With his current spiritual attribute as high as 4,000 points, a phase shift can span a maximum distance of 40,000 meters. Destroying the priesthood, Sumu naturally knew that he had been exposed to the eyes of the holy light mage, and might even attract his hatred, and pursue him so. After destroying the priest group, he directly appeared in the depths of the city of the undead as a phase shift. Want to hunt him down? Can first cross the blockade of Argus, and then enter the city of the undead. Fred has the Book of Hallow Ray in his hand, allowing him to suppress Argus, the legendary Lich King. As a hero, Sumu does not believe that Argus does not have a similar trump card. If the strength of this undead sage was only what he showed, the city of the undead in the previous life could not be preserved at all. Argus, the Lich King, will not become a stepping stone for Rogris. The only possibility is that Argus does have the means to match or even repel Fred, but the cost of using this method was too great, so he never wanted to use it. Sumu was lost on the battlefield. Remembering Sumu's breath in that startling glance, the furious Fred discovered that the breath of the undead, who destroyed the priests under his command, disappeared in a flash in the depths of the city of the dead. If you want to kill the undead, you must enter the city of the undead. To enter the city of the undead, you must first defeat or kill Argus, the Lich King. Fragmented golden flames burned in his pupils, and even though he had entered a state of rage, Fred still did not lose his mind. After being angry to the extreme, he calmed down instead. Glancing in the direction where the priests were destroyed, Fred flipped through the Book of Light and once again blessed the elite knights with the protection of the holy light. Then, his brows suddenly became gloomy, and the surging magic value in his body kept entering the Book of Light, and turned directly to the back side of the Book of Light. As a holy artifact, the Book of Light is not owned by Fred. It is the treasure of the Empire. It was also due to the continuous efforts of countless archmages, epic mages and legendary mages in an empire that powerful top-level holy light spells were engraved on the page of the Book of Light. Starting from the first page, the further down the page, the more powerful the holy light spell engraved in it. Inscribed on the last 10 pages is the ultimate spell, the forbidden spell, which was inscribed by the combined efforts of countless mages, and consumed a huge amount of resources. Of course, this is the foundation of an empire. Although Fred was authorized to bring the Book of Light, he was not qualified to use this spellcaster's ultimate skill. He opened the last 13 pages of the Book of Light. Inscribed on it is one of the most powerful spells that he has the authority to use, a top-level holy light spell known as a quasi-forbidden spell, Divine Judgment. Quasi-forbidden spell. Even with the help of the Book of Light, just activating this top-level holy light spell instead of releasing it personally consumed nearly half of Fred's mana. When the quasi-forbidden spell was finally activated, Fred laughed, a face full of bitterness. The divine verdict is released. Unless Argus has a stronger trump card, it is inevitable that this city of the dead will be destroyed. Only destroying the city of the undead is considered to have completed the mission. However, the entire army of priests was wiped out. This almost unbearable loss made Fred prefer that he did not accept this task, and did not come to crusade the city of the dead. After all, as Argus said, the city of the undead under its protection is only the habitat of the undead, who have never stepped out of this mountain range, and never set foot on the territory of the empire. At the price of paying for the priesthood that took decades to cultivate, erasing such a city of the dead that has a small chance to threaten the empire still not worth it. Fred can't judge. The only person who is qualified to judge is the master of the empire, the Emperor of the Empire. Quasi-forbidden spell, Holy Judgment. With the release of this skill, a light appeared in the sky. Then, a faint shadow of an angel slowly emerged. White armor, wing, head halo. When this figure that did not belong to the human world appeared, an equally illusory longbow appeared in his hand. Angel void pull. Endless holy light gathered on the bowstring, forming a huge arrow of holy light. The tip of the arrow points to the city of the dead. At this moment, the war between the Death Knights and the Elite Knights is over. The Elite Knights, who were very aware of the power of the Divine Judgment, immediately withdrew from the battlefield, leaving only the Death Knights standing still. The battle between the legendary Juggernaut and the Wailing Banshee, an epic stitcher, is also over. A sword shredded hundreds of undead who were still trying to rush up, and the legendary swordsman rose up into the air, appearing behind Fred. However, the Wailing Banshee and the epic stitching monster did not flee, but after looking at each other, they slowly retreated to Argus with their subordinates. Divine Judgment. A hoarse voice came floating above the city of the dead, and through the dark sky, Argus saw the phantom of the angel higher up. Angel Phantom is aiming at the city of the dead, not him. If he wanted to escape with the ability of a legendary Lich King, he could still escape, only he escaped, and many undead on this battlefield will be purified together with the city of the undead, and burned to ashes by pure holy light. This is not in line with his original intention. He still wanted to shelter these undead, and wanted to leave this city of the undead. The breath of death kept surging and gathered towards the Lich King, while desperately extracting the breath of death in the city of the undead to prepare for the upcoming divine judgment. Argus spoke again. Nefarian, I promise you the conditions are complicated, as if responding to Argus' words. At the same time as the hoarse voice spread towards the city of the undead, a high-pitched and passionate roar suddenly sounded from the center of the city of the undead. Next up, the fog formed by the breath of death surges wildly. A shadowy figure soared into the sky, with a cold and powerful aura that spread, approaching here at an extremely fast speed. Argus Holcard, a true legendary boss, finally arrived. The huge figure moved extremely fast. Almost at the moment when the black mist surged, he appeared beside Argus and floated in the air. A huge body of dozens of meters floats in the air, like a hill. On the hideous head, 2 blue dots flickered. Most of the majestic body rotted away, leaving only a little flesh hanging on the extremely thick bones. The 2 wings were equally tattered, but there were gusts of wind when they flapped. This is a skull dragon. Do not, to be exact, this is a ghost dragon. This is a legendary race. The so-called legendary race is, as long as it is a member of this race, as long as it does not fall in the process of growth, with the passage of time, this race will definitely enter the legendary rank, no doubt. Among all the races in the game world, the most famous legendary race is the dragon. Whether it is sharp minions, tough dragon scales, majestic dragon power, or dragon language magic, that is completely different from other skills. It seems that the dragon family is a sign of strength by nature. In all continents in the game world, the giant dragons are all legendary races, standing at the top. Now, he appeared in front of him in his previous life as a giant dragon, rarely seen in legendary sword saints. Like other races, those races that have fallen and become undead, not a career change like Rogris, will definitely lose 1 rank, and the same is true of this skull dragon. But at this moment, the terrifying aura emanating from this skull dragon was not only unique to the legendary rank, but even far surpassed that of Argus and Fred, who were also legendary rank. An epic bone dragon does not have such a terrifying aura, even if it was transformed from a legendary dragon. Having an aura above the legends of Argus and Fred does not mean that the dragon 443 reached the realm of legends before it fell, but means, after changing from a legendary dragon to an epic bone dragon, this giant dragon advanced again as a bone dragon. Ray entered the legendary level, and became another existence that is more terrifying than the legendary dragon Ghost Dragon. The Ghost Dragon is born unparalleled power. When he saw this huge figure and recognized the true identity and rank of this Ghost Dragon, even though the divine judgment had been released, Fred's expression changed greatly. If there is only Argus, it is absolutely difficult to resist the divine judgment, but when a Ghost Dragon that only exists in legends and that he has never seen before appears and joins forces with Argus, the Lich King, even he is not sure whether the divine ruling can destroy the city of the dead. Comparison: those high-level undead are relatively calm. Originally, Sumu thought that those high-level undead did not escape because they were not sure to escape from the scope of the divine judgment, but now it seems that they have long known the existence of ghost dragons. It has long been known that when the city of the dead is really in crisis, Argus will definitely not be able to bear it, and let the ghost dragon take action. Nefarian, this is the name of the ghost dragon. When it appeared beside Argus, a huge wave of soul also emanated from the ghost dragon. Argus, you lost. This king can help you protect the city of the dead, and can even help you kill those humans and counterattack the human world. But, from now on, this king is the master of the city of the dead. The ghost dragon is invincible at the same level, except for the giant dragon that broke through the legendary rank. No giant dragon would be the opponent of the ghost dragon, and naturally he could be the king at this time. Sumu, who interprets the soul fluctuations of the ghost dragon Nefarian, also knew the reason why Argus was reluctant to let the ghost dragon take action in the first place. As a sage of the undead, Argus has always regarded himself as the protector of the undead. He created the city of the undead in order to create a habitat for the undead, not to become the master of this city of the undead, and to tend these undead, although he already has this ability. Now that the ghost dragon has taken action, it means that he has agreed to Nefarian's conditions. From then on, This invincible ghost dragon is the master of this city of the dead. Benefits are, the city of the undead has a guardian stronger than him. The downside is, since it's this king's city, it's natural for this king to decide. The huge soul fluctuations spread again, and when the divine judgment was about to fall, Nefarian, who was floating beside Argus, suddenly moved. It flaps its broken wings. The huge figure swept across the city of the dead like a bolt of lightning. Roar, accompanied by the silent roar of souls. Countless middle and low-level undead fell to the ground instantly, and the fire of their souls floated up in the next moment, all of which did not enter the ferocious open mouth of the ghost dragon. Devour soul fire. Just this time, Nefarian devoured the soul fire of 100,000 middle and low-level undead. This is the reason why Argus is reluctant to let the ghost dragon take action. Devouring the soul fire, the ghost dragon returned to Argus again. As if afraid of Argus being angry, the third soul wave spread from Nefarian's body. Gia. Argus, don't be angry. What this king devoured was the soul fire that did not give birth to consciousness. This time I'm full. This king will not eat for a long time, and won't eat them all. Besides, if this king didn't take action, these beings that were not even called ants would have perished long ago. It's not too much for this king to eat some of them as a reward for saving them. Argus was helpless. What had happened? He could only accept it. As Nefarian said, without the help of the bone dragon, he could not stop the divine judgment. At that time, all the undead in the entire city of the dead have no chance of surviving. Such a result, pretty acceptable. During the dialogue between the two, the divine judgment has already fallen. The phantom of the angel in the sky has disappeared, but the arrow of holy light shot by the phantom of the angel has not disappeared. Instead, it was like a punishment from heaven, attacking the city of the dead. The almost endless breath of death was mobilized by Argus, and, formed a thick layer of dark barriers above the city of the dead, covering the entire city of the dead. The arrow of holy light fell. The dark barrier shattered layer by layer. When the dozens of layers of dark barriers were all shattered, only 1/3 of that huge arrow of holy light was consumed. It still fell with the power to purify everything. At this time, the full ghost dragon rose into the sky. It flew towards the falling holy light arrow, and when it was about to approach the holy light arrow, the ferocious mouth that had just swallowed up 100,000 undead opened, and let out a breath. Roar. The silent soul roar spreads out. The black cold current spewed out of Nefarian's mouth, attacking the arrow of holy light like an endless stream. This cold snap is no ordinary breath. Not only does it contain an extremely strong aura of death, but it is also mixed with the same pure dark aura and frosty aura. The three unite. The cold current mixed with black crushed ice spewed towards the arrow of holy light. Even the arrows of holy light, which were easily torn apart by the dozens of layers of dark barriers under Auguspu, continued to melt away in the cold current that spewed out. It is not that the quasi-forbidden spell is inferior to the breath of the ghost dragon. Instead, the arrow of holy light is a rootless tree and water without a source, but the death breath of the ghost dragon is one of its strongest ultimate moves. The breath of death and darkness contained in it constantly melts the holy light in the arrows in this way. It can block this quasi-forbidden spell. The breath of death continued. Every second is accompanied by the consumption of a large amount of mana. When his magic power was about to bottom out, and the arrow of holy light was still 1/5 left, Nefarian was a little anxious. According to the current oblation speed, until its magic value is completely exhausted, it is not enough to completely dissolve the arrow of holy light. Based on its location, if the remaining arrows of holy light fall, it is not the city of the dead that hits, but it is close at hand. Argus, help me. Under the threat of the holy light, Nefarian did not care about his pride and face, and a wave of soul fluctuations erupted again. The only remaining magic value put a shield on himself. Argus also hurriedly shot, and a series of barriers blocked Nefarian and the arrow of holy light. Subsequently, death is over. Almost 1/10 of the holy light's arrows still penetrated the dark barrier and the dark shield, hitting the ghost dragon's half-rotten body. Boom! With a roar, the holy light that erupted tore apart a large piece of the dark sky. Even the ocean of undead on the ground was affected by the poured holy light, and turned to ashes in this blazing holy light ended. Argus sighed in relief. Although many undead were affected by the holy light and turned to ashes, this city belonging to the undead has finally survived. Ended. Fred's heart lifted. He saw that the arrow of holy light finally hit the ghost dragon, but he didn't know whether the arrow of holy light, which had been greatly weakened, could seriously injure or even kill this ghost dragon, which was only recorded in legends. Divine Judgment is already the most powerful spell he can unleash. For the rest, either he did not have the authority to activate it at all, and could not activate it, or it affected a larger area, but the power was far less than the skill of the divine judgment. It can be said, how the ghost dragon ends will directly determine their ending. It also determines how threatening the undead city is to the empire. The ghost dragon is no better than Argus. In addition to being more terrifying than Argus, the most terrifying thing is its race. Even the living legendary dragon can't bear the temperament of the former residents, let alone the ghost dragon, who has returned from death and is known for its tyranny and bloodthirsty. He was waiting eagerly. The holy light and the breath of death dissipated each other, and a large amount of smoke spread out. Just as Fred was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the silent soul roar spread out again. The fog rolled violently. A charred huge figure suddenly rushed out of the smoke that blocked his sight, with a strong aura of violence and death, and attacked in the direction of Fred. Vulnerable human beings, death to this king. Ghost dragon. That huge figure rushing out of the fog is Nefarian. Quasi-forbidden spells are very powerful, enough to destroy the city of the dead, but since he dared to rush up to resist the divine ruling, Nefarian was somewhat sure after all. Not only it, Argus thinks so too. Only 1/10 of the holy light's arrows erupted, although it burned the ghost dragon's huge body to black, and even the rotten flesh on its body was scorched. But these were all traumatic injuries. In addition to the depletion of magic power, and the appearance of a mess, the fighting power of the ghost dragon has not been reduced much. Rushing out of the fog, the furious Nefarian crossed a distance of several thousand meters in a few breaths, and appeared in front of Fred. Its dragon claw, which contains the triple power of death, darkness, and frost, also slapped on Fred at the same time. Dragon, physical attack and magic attack. Even if the mana is depleted, no one dares to underestimate the physical damage caused by a legendary dragon. Almost at the same time as the dragon claws were lined up, the shield of light on Fred's body shattered layer by layer. Fred, who was originally floating in mid-air, was more like a ball and was shot from a distance. After doing all this, Nefarian hasn't vented enough. The dark light flickered faintly in the mouth, urging the newly recovered magic value, and this angry ghost dragon was ready to breathe a death breath and spray it on the elite knights below. Nefarian, don't push me. Fred is, after all, the holy light mage at the pinnacle of legend. After being shot, he stabilized his figure and flew over the elite knights for the first time, blocking the middle of Nefarian and the elite knights. The staff has been put away. At this time, Fred held the Book of Light with both hands, and he shouted in a stern voice, Argus should know that holding the Book of Light in his hand, I have the ability to perish with you. Really? Fred did not have the authority or ability to activate the forbidden spells inscribed on the last 10 pages of the Book of Light, but no one knew that. At least Argus and Nefarian didn't know. The appearance of the ghost dragon made it impossible to destroy the city of the dead. The clergy had been wiped out, and Fred did not want the remaining elite knights to follow in the footsteps of the clergy. The ghost dragon is very powerful, so powerful that no one can beat him. As the holy light mage at the pinnacle of legend, and holding the Book of Light in his hand, Fred naturally had absolute certainty to escape, but not necessarily the other two legendary heroes and the elite knights. In order to save them, Fred could only make this move, referred to as cheating. The death breath in Nefarian's mouth stopped, and he glanced at the Book of Light in Fred's hand with some doubts, and Nefarian couldn't help but look towards Argus. He was right. Argus slowly stepped forward and said, the Book of Light is the holy artifact of the Empire, and the last 10 pages are inscribed with the forbidden curse of light. If he is reckless, he does have the ability to perish with us. Got Argus confirmation. Nefarian must. Quasi-forbidden spell. It is not afraid. The big deal is that his already tattered body has become a little bit more tattered. As long as the skeleton as the main body is not destroyed, it will always recover, one day. But the curse, especially the forbidden spells of the Holy Light series, it is really possible to kill it and Argus here. Once not twice, 3 times if not twice. Not to mention it, a ghost dragon of the legendary rank, even if it is beyond the legendary rank, must face 10 forbidden spells that may erupt at any time. Roar. With an angry roar, Nefarian did not retreat, but the dark light in his mouth gradually dissipated. Bet right. With a sigh of relief in his heart, Fred said expressionlessly, this time, we lost. As long as Your Excellency Gelong doesn't shoot, we are willing to retreat. I can guarantee that the Empire will not send troops again because of this, only. I also hope that Your Excellency Argus and Your Excellency Gelong will not venture into the territory of the Empire. Otherwise, even if you fight for this old life, I will also try to see if the two Your Excellencies can withstand the power of the Holy Light forbidden curse. After saying what seemed tough but actually angry, Fred waved his hand expressionlessly on the ground. Under the protection of the legendary Hero Knight and the legendary Juggernaut, the elite knights quickly left and retreated in the direction away from the city of the dead. It wasn't until their figures completely disappeared on the distant horizon that Fred breathed a sigh of relief. Then 2 gentlemen, we will have no future. Subsequently, taking out a teleportation scroll and tearing it apart, the figure of the legendary Holy Light Mage also disappeared in place after a burst of light. Zero asked for flowers. The Empire fell. This war of death and the light is finally over perhaps. The process is not the same as the previous life, but the result is the same. It's just that Sumu couldn't understand why he had never heard about Nefarian in his previous life. Such a powerful ghost dragon, if he caused a little damage, was enough to be on the list of natural disasters. But not only did Sumu never see the information about this ghost dragon from the list of natural disasters in his previous life, but there was also no information about this ghost dragon in Rogris' major memoirs. Did you leave midway, or did this powerful ghost dragon perish before the rise of Rogris? Insufficient information. Naturally do not understand. Putting this question aside for a while, Sumu came from the depths of the city of the dead and appeared in front of Argus and Nefarian. If he wants to seek an epic occupation template, he must haunt the city of the dead. Since he wanted to stay here for a long time, he naturally wanted to meet the owner of the city of the dead. Otherwise, an unfamiliar undead is hidden in the city of the dead, and is regarded as malicious by Argus or Nefarian. If a skill is thrown away, it will not be fun. Although he appeared here, and he really had no good intentions. Skull Clan Shepherd, I have seen too, Your Excellencies. A phase shift appeared in front of Argus and Nefarian, and Sumu bowed humbly. Argus had already met Sumu. In particular, seeing him appear in the priesthood with his own eyes, killing hundreds of priests in just a few breaths, greatly relieved the pressure on the Death Knights and the Sea of Undead. At this time, Sumu appeared, and the Lich King was very kind to him. It's Nefarian. Hey, black boy. What breed are you? Why has this king never seen a skeleton like yours? Multi-professional fusion. The final formed Darth Vader king, Argus and Nefarian, who have been born for a long time, have never seen the top undead. Curiosity exploded. When Sumu appeared, Nefarian couldn't help falling to the ground, and the huge skull dragon head, like a small house, also looked forward and appeared in front of Sumu's eyes. A huge dragon head stuck in front of him, tilted slightly, and the faint blue soul fire in the two huge eye sockets kept flickering. Carefully observing Sumu from head to toe. Does Nefarian's look a bit cute? But just a few meters away from Nefarian, Sumu didn't feel anything cute about this terrifying ghost dragon. He could clearly feel the terrifying power contained in this huge skull dragon head. Perhaps as long as Nefarian breathes lightly, Sumu, who has grown to the bottom, will be seriously injured. Of course, caution is prudent, and Sumu has not reached the level of fear, because Nefarian didn't need to take action against himself at all. Besides, looking at Nefarian's gigantic skeleton dragon head, and then looking at this ghost dragon's ferocious and mighty huge body, inexplicably, Sumu thought of the time he had just met Agnes. Then, the skeleton warhorse under Agnes' crotch made him envious for a long time. That is, from that time on, Sumu had the idea of looking for a skull dragon to serve as his mount. The bone dragon is just an epic step. The ghost dragon in front of him is a true legendary rank. Moreover, even among all the monster bosses, or NPCs in the legendary rank, Nefarian is the one who stands at the top. If Nefarian could be enslaved, for a time, Sumu looked at the ghost dragon with hot eyes. This is not delusional. Just the Lord rank, Sumu has already been able to match or even surpass most of the epic rank monster boss. When he advances again, from the Lord rank to the epic rank, even the legendary rank, with his strength growing, suppressing this ghost dragon is definitely not a problem. As long as it can be suppressed, Sumu can enslave it, and make this ghost dragon his own mount. The undead family is all-encompassing, and it is only natural that there will be a skeleton lord that we have never seen before. Isn't the ghost dragon always just a legend before I met you, Nefarian? Maybe it was because he was afraid that the ghost dragon would scare Sumu. Seeing the movements of the ghost dragon, Argus took a few steps forward and chuckled. After watching Sumu for a while, Nefarian lost interest. It's just pure curiosity to see what kind of undead Sumu is. Argus would not allow it to swallow even a skeleton like an elite rank that had just opened its wisdom, let alone a skeleton of a lord rank like Sumu. Finish watching. Can't eat. Nefarian naturally lost his curiosity about Sumu, and it always felt that the skeleton lord looked at him with a strange look, which made it feel fluffy. After losing interest, it simply soared into the air and flew towards the depths of the city of the undead. Nefarian leaves. After a few words with Sumu, Argus also left. He stayed. On the one hand, he got to know Sumu, a strange skeleton who was clearly a lord, but easily slaughtered the entire priesthood. He welcomed him to the city of the dead, and on the other hand, he explained some of the city of the dead notes. As a city of death, there are not many rules in the city of the dead. In addition to not being able to easily fight other undead races, Argus basically has no restrictions on the undead in this city. He is the protector of the dead. What he did was to build such a city of the undead, so that many undead could have a habitat. In addition to having to show up when foreign enemies invade, Argus' favorite thing is to hide in his necromancer tower and do all kinds of research. It used to be so. The same will be true in the future. Perhaps, some people will say, such a lich king or a lich king. Actually, there are not only Argus-like liches, but there are also quite a number of them. In order to have more time for research, some mages actively choose to transform themselves into the lich family. This kind of lich basically hides in inaccessible places to do their own research with peace of mind perhaps. Undead like Sumu and Nefarian are the undead in human cognition. Argus, in essence, he is still a human mage, who has the identity of the Lich King, but is obsessed with various researches. After meeting Nefarian and chatting with Argus, Sumu officially joined the City of the Dead. As long as there is no place occupied by other undead, he can choose his residence at will. There is a huge altar of death in the City of the Undead, and it is also sheltered by a dark sky. Except for the special situation before, no one will bother. In this city, every undead can absorb the ubiquitous pure breath of death to improve his strength. Slowly, but persistently, it accumulates over time. In addition to Argus and Nefarian, what Sumu cares about in this City of the Dead is the Wailing Banshee and the Epic Stitch. The Wailing Banshee is an epic progression to the Ghost Clan. Has the class template required by Sumu's advanced epic? That Epic Stitch monster is a creation of Argus. Yes, one of the skills Argus is best at is undead transformation. In the long-term research, he not only raised the undead transformation technique to a very high level, but also transformed the special undead such as the Suture monster. Pity, the strongest Stitch monsters are only epic ranks. If one day, Argus can transform a legendary Stitch monster, I am afraid that just relying on his understanding of the undead transformation, he will be able to take that step in advance to the Sanctuary. Aside from the Wailing Banshee and Stitch, the rest is the Dread Knight. As an epic rank, Dread Knight can be said to be the strongest of the three bosses, and also the most valued by Sumu. He already has the Arch-Lich job template. If you get the 3 professional templates of Wailing Banshee, Epic Stitch and Dread Knight, Sumu can try to combine these 4 professional templates to create his own epic professional template. 3 major career templates. None of them are easy to get. After thinking about it carefully, Sumu found that among the 3 professional templates, it is the professional template of the strongest Fear Knight, and he is most likely to get it first. 5.5 The breakthrough is Agnes. The habitat of the Death Knights is not in the City of the Dead, but in a canyon behind the City of the Dead. That canyon was also shrouded in darkness. After having an idea, Sumu had an idea, and Agnes returned from the Death Knights and appeared in front of him. Then, taking this little Death Knight girl, who has experienced the baptism of war and is superior in both breath and skill, Sumu walked straight towards the center of the City of the Dead. There, not only has the purest breath of death, but also has the opportunity for Agnes to grow. As long as Agnes can grow up as she wishes, he is sure enough to get the job template of the Dread Knight. By the way, get another Death Knight.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.